AW, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, AW, for our viewers who might not have seen you, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and really a bit more about Silverflow too?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So I'm Anne Willem De Vries. It's a Frisian name, small part of the Netherlands, which actually has their own languages. 200,000 people. But please just call me AW, because that makes it a lot easier for everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe very quick about me. So besides being a co-founder and CEO of Silverflow, I have a family with 3 girls, 3.5, 5, and 8. So often people ask me, what's your key challenge? And I'll say, well, Silverflow is fine, but
it's when you get
dealing
home,
with that it's hard work, but very, very rewarding, of course. I have a background in physics. I used to work for a while for a Bain & Company and a while in private equity. And basically, after 10 years in business, I wanted to go back to doing nerdy stuff. Yeah. So joined the team at Adyen, at the Amsterdam-based payments behemoth, where I was in the acquiring processing team. So among other things, helping set up the US for Adyen, so the US processing on Wells Fargo and Deutsche Bank BINs. So we used the banks as sponsors, and then we use our own technology for merchants like Google, Facebook, the works.
Absolutely incredible. And you are a co-founder of Silverflow. Can I ask a bit more about that and what that process was like? Because obviously you have that very brilliant kind of experience from Adyen, so you have that root in payments. And what was it like creating Silverflow yourself?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Robert Kral, who was my boss at Adyen, and I were about now exactly 5 years ago, were contemplating what would be a fun thing to do next. Adyen was already a bit big and established, and we were more keen on setting up new things. And the idea of Silverflow actually dates back from the early Adyen days. So Adyen decided to become, as one of the first companies in the world, a non-bank principal member of MasterCard and Visa, on the back of a PSD regulation, which was introduced in 2007 and 2009. So you basically had to choose, if I want to be in the money flow, if I want to help my merchants to fund their payments, you need to be regulated. Yeah. EMI, PI, you guys probably know quite a lot about these topics. But Robert actually was once saying, hey, this PSD was introduced to create a level playing field between the banks on one hand and the payment service providers on the other hand. So we said, hey, this means we don't always only have the same obligations as these banks, but should also have access to the same opportunities. And in this case, becoming a principal member of Visa and MasterCard. Now, I promised you to explain why we founded Silverflow, so yeah. I'll get there. Basically, if you've decided that, you have to see how am I going to connect to the card schemes. And the team at Adyen, which before founded Bibit, that was bought by Royal Bank of Scotland, and that's now WorldPay, I was quite familiar with most of the processing platforms. So the big European players, Nexi, Sia, Worldline, the US ones, Heartland, Global Payments, FIS, etc. And we work quite well, but we thought it not easy to work with. They don't give you a lot of data back, and they were not very innovative.
Right.
So Adyen said, okay, we're going to try to build this in-house. And that was sort of the foundation stone of the everything in-house build philosophy of Adyen. And if you look at the market cap, I think that has been a good decision.
Definitely. It does showcase just how important data is to organizations in the payments sphere, where they know that for every single payment made, that's an extra insight into their customers, for instance, and there's a whole lot of wealth that can come off the back of that. So kudos to you. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please continue.
No, sure, please do. So this is exactly right. Those systems were not designed as a payment system, and kudos to those engineers back in the 80s. Bandwidth, CPU, RAM was very, very scarce. So you want to make your system as efficient as possible. So basically sending a 0 or 1, payment done or not done. At Adyen, we want to know, why is my payment refused? So you can act on it and try to improve it. So we want that data. Now, the idea behind Silverflow, what Robert and I realized 5 years ago, was if you're now in the position that you want to connect to the card schemes, to Visa, MasterCard, but also Amex or local schemes like the Belgian Bankcontact, you can either go with one of these legacy players, which have been there 30, 40 years, or you can build it yourself. That's a very heavy lift. You always have entrepreneurs who love to do anything in-house, who will do that.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the best business decision. So we said we're going to create a new processor, put it in the cloud. That helps a lot with security, reliability, PCI, but also just being up and running. And not go after merchants, so not copy Adyen or Checkout's business model, but sell this to other payment companies. And that's really sort of the basic idea around Silverflow.
Absolutely incredible, because we often talk about how important cloud-based technologies are, but it's often that final hurdle, especially when we come to an industry like payments that is so heavily regulated, but cloud enables obviously that scale. It does seem like the perfect place for it, and to incorporate that into so many different organizations is brilliant to hear. But it leads to one of my first questions of the day, that's really kind of looking at what it's been like for Silverflow to try and bring in cloud-based technology into an industry, as I mentioned, where it's so heavily regulated, like payments.
Yeah, it's really a bit of you have to sell it. So you have to sell it to your customers. You have to convince them that it's a good idea. If you look at it high level, AWS, which we use, but also Azure or Google, have so many engineers and so many specialists working on securing their data systems, on reliability, on scalability. It's in no way that you can replicate that, or that you can even be close to being as good as them.
Yeah.
And these are things which, of course, in payments are super important. And it's for us just simply a matter of turning on more instances and getting at the click of a button, or actually it's not even a click of a button, it goes automatically. We scale up if it's Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Singles Day. So the scalability or the capacity is not an issue at all.
No, it really does, as you mentioned, some of those incredible retail events throughout the year put so much pressure on the merchants, and as a result, put pressure on, I guess, some of your clients. And to be able to scale in that regard is absolutely amazing. So one thing that you've mentioned is how these organizations can do this in-house, but you mentioned it's such a heavy lift. Can you take us through that heavy lift? What is the process of incorporating cloud into these payment systems?
Well, it depends a bit. The heavy lift is a lot if you're going to build your own processor.
Yeah.
So using cloud, say if you're a gateway, if you're a PSP, if you're active in terminals, that's in general a very good idea, and it's very compatible with what we do. So it's very easy to connect to cloud systems, even if they're not from the same company. Right. If it's AWS connected to Google, that's all quite easy to do.
Okay.
The challenge is more, how do you connect the Visa MasterCard access points to the cloud? And kind of funny story, so Visa and MasterCard are doing this themselves. They've launched this in the US called Cloud Connect and Cloud Edge. And after drilling down in what they exactly do, they do exactly the same as what we did. So you get a rack and the data center, put the Visa and MasterCard hardware, which connects them through dark fiber to their networks, and that you can connect to the cloud.
Incredible. And it's brilliant to hear that these organizations are interoperable with each other. You often feel like these tech giants are very closed off in their castles, and if you go with one provider, suddenly you're going to be prevented from joining the others. And I'd love to understand, you talked about kind of, you do have to sell your customers because payments is a slow-moving industry typically. What are the immediate benefits these PSPs are going to see once they start using Silverflow?
Well, you run into a bit, but that's with cloud, but also as startup as general, you never get fired for hiring IBM.
Right, yeah.
So you have to fight that, but I think every startup has that feeling, especially if you're like us selling to other corporates, to other businesses. Where we really make a difference is, and Payable is a very nice example for that, but also from our other customers, if they're ambitious, they want to grow, they want to change things, and they want things relatively quick, so in 2, 3, 4, 5 months. We just see that both from a technology perspective, but also from an organizational perspective, we are much more suited to meet their needs. Incredible. If you're Walmart or Tesco and you are just doing the same thing every day, it's fine. Although we also believe that as Tesco also wants to know, is this card user, which I actually never see in the shop before, but they actually spent, £2,000 last month on grocery shopping online, you kind of want to know that this is a valuable customer, and not that it's just a walk-in.
You see, it's absolutely incredible. That actually harks back to the very beginning of our talk, where we were looking at the data insights that payments can provide, and how having that scalability of a cloud-based platform can enable these organizations to suddenly realize far more about their customer and pass that on to them. And with that in mind, then, we're talking about the influence of data and how important it is going forward. We're certainly seeing with open banking a change to the way that card providers are operating. We're looking at MasterCard and Visa looking at very new ways to play in the industry. Can I get your perspective as to where you think they're going to evolve going forward?
The open banking, you mean?
Well, really, MasterCard and Visa in general, because we're looking at, for instance, with open banking payments or account-to-account payments. I can't think of anyone better to tell us where you see those industries heading in the future.
Well, keep in mind, MasterCard and Visa have about 6 billion cards issued.
Wow.
Among the two of them. Mark Zuckerberg, or Facebook, Meta, has about 1 billion users.
Right.
So talking about networks effects, because there are also about 200 million merchants, this is the network of networks, and this is why they're called networks, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's very, very hard to disrupt that. And I don't really believe that open banking or any other payment system will do that in the short term, especially if you go international. There are local networks like Adyen in the Netherlands, Bankcontact in Belgium. You have a great private initiative in Italy, Satispay, which really went merchant by merchant, city by city, as an open banking system to pay in store. But in most cases, these are government-enabled card schemes. So think China UnionPay, think JCB, Carte Bancaire, Girocard. Often a couple of the banks in the country have set this up.
They're established.
More or less to keep the Americans out. That was the goal in the first place.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, and it's something that we encounter a lot here at FF when it comes to all those changes and where we're seeing those organizations going in the future. Now, speaking of organizations, partnerships, and networks, I'd love to understand your work with Payable.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the challenges Payable faces is also they want to grow. They're very ambitious, and for example, a project we recently helped them with. They, as a lot of European payment companies, need a UK license in order to continue doing business in the UK after Brexit. And for UK companies, the similar approach goes for being active in Europe. So they've got their license from the UK regulator. They got their affiliate principal membership for MasterCard and Visa. But then you have to set up all your BINs and your settlement currencies, which they already have established for Europe, also again in the UK. And this is typically a change in the system where we are very suitable to help them quickly with. And for legacy organizations, both from a technology perspective, but also from an organizational perspective, this is quite hard to do. It's really a 4, 5, 6 months project, and hence quite expensive. And we do this in a matter of a couple of weeks.
That's absolutely incredible. I mean, I've talked about how the payments industry typically moves quite slowly because of regulation, because of cultural things. People are used to the ways that they pay, and as a result, we see that change. But to hear that change on the back end is absolutely fascinating. And you mentioned obviously Payable starting their British license, they're getting their EMI license here. Is that something that at Silverflow you had to do, or is that just very much kind of you operate in the back end and enable those companies?
Yeah, so we're not licensed, and this is for us also a choice. So our customers are licensed, and on the one hand, that means we can grow internationally much quicker. So we don't need to go getting a license country by country. As a nice example, we just onboarded last year a customer in Singapore.
Oh, wow.
That was as much work as onboarding a customer in Switzerland.
Amazing.
It's a different currency, so you need to do a bit of work around that. But yeah, adding countries, adding currencies is in most cases for us business as usual.
AW, I want to say a massive thank you for your insights. With your experience from Adyen and beyond with Silverflow, it's been absolutely fascinating. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for the invitation.